everyone, my name is Dayna and I'm the Buena Vista Branch Manager with Monterey County Free Libraries. And welcome to STEAM Time. Today we are talking about engineering, and we're going to learn about engineering by creating our very own toothpick towers. So stay tuned, I'm going to walk you through what you need, the science behind it, and how to get started. For today's STEAM Time challenge, we are going to need just a few things. The first thing you're going to need are toothpicks, and these are just your regular toothpicks, and Play-Doh. It could be Play-Doh brand, homemade Play-Doh, whatever you have on hand, but today I'm going to be using store-bought Play-Doh for my toothpick tower. So that's it. That's all you're going to need. If you want to move your tower around as you're building it or after, you might want to have a piece of construction paper or a paper plate to build on. You'll see with this one right here, I put it on top of a thicker piece of construction paper. That way I can move it around without trying to pick it up and having it collapse on me. So that's all you need. So let's go ahead and jump in to the science behind our toothpick towers. So let's talk a little bit about engineering. That's the science concept that we are going to be talking about today. So let's start by asking our question, what is an engineer? What exactly do they do? So an engineer is someone who builds and designs structures or machines. So today, we are going to become our own engineers by creating our own toothpick towers with a limited number of supplies, toothpicks and Play-Doh. So engineers, in order to design their buildings and machines, they have to do what's called the design process. So they think of ideas, they test their ideas, and then they think about ways to improve those ideas and designs if they don't work. And we're going to be doing that here today. We're going to come up with a design, we are going to build it, test its strength, and if it doesn't work, we try again. We will come up with a new design concept. So for today, the goal of this STEAM Time challenge is to create a toothpick tower that is a freestanding structure. So a freestanding structure is one that does not have support from anything else. It doesn't have support from another building. It is freestanding by itself. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead, gather our supplies, and let's get building. Now, before we jump into building, let's talk a little bit about building our base. So before you begin building your freestanding tower, it's a really good idea to start thinking about creating a stable base. And you can do that a couple of ways. One idea is to start with two-dimensional shapes. So you can create a base that is a triangle. You can do a square. So I'll show you really quickly. So I've already rolled out little balls of Play-Doh, and part of the experiment for your tower will be playing around with the size of your Play-Doh supports. Does it work better if they're smaller, larger? Does the base need a certain size? And as you get taller, the size changes? That's something you're going to want to take into account as you're building your toothpick tower. But you can start by doing a two-dimensional shape. So as I said, you can create a basic triangle shape. So this just requires 3 toothpicks, and I'll show you right now. So that would be your basic two-dimensional shape. So you could start with something like this, put it on your paper, and then begin building however you think will make the most stable structure. You can also do another two-dimensional shape by creating a square. So we would just add in a fourth toothpick. And this is a great way to tie in geometry, a great way to start learning about different shapes. So here you have, mine kind of fell apart, so make sure they're really in the Play-Doh. You can even start to kind of squish it around it if you want. But there's another two-dimensional shape. It is just a square, and you could build off of that. And once you feel comfortable building these bases, you can then move on to a three-dimensional shape. So you could actually start to create a cube shape. So you would want to just make a box or a cube like this. And you're starting to build your shape taller, and just add on more Play-Doh supports. And the fun part of this is there is no right or wrong way. You can be as creative as you want to be. So let me just finish our cube. Okay, so this would then be our three-dimensional shape that we could start with. So this is another type of support. Mine is it's leaning a little bit, but that's okay. Play around with it. But you can start with this type of support. It's really up to you. So definitely practice doing two-dimensional supports. You could do three-dimensional. You could do, it's kind of however creative you want to be. So that's where we're going to start. We are going to start just by building our base and being comfortable with that. And the great thing about engineering is you get to play around and really think about the materials that are being used, what type of structure or the goal that you're trying to create, what do you want your structure to be? And for us, we're trying to create the tallest freestanding structure that's also stable, that doesn't tip over, using a very limited number of supplies. I have 20 toothpicks, and I rolled out 15 to 20 little Play-Doh balls, depending on how big your structure is going to be. But try limiting yourself to a limited number of materials and see how creative you can get with your tower. So that's where we start with our base. Now let's look at as we continue to build our structure. I have now added onto my three-dimensional cube base, and I actually added another three-dimensional cube on top, and that's how I'm doing it vertically. And so think about, as you're designing it, if you notice, part of my tower is really starting to lean in one direction. So if you see it collapsing or leaning to one side, ask yourself, how can I fix this? What can I do to support the side that's collapsing or leaning? And you might find that certain shapes work really well for your tower, others don't. Again, this is where you get to build and test. This is the whole process of engineering, the design process. You're going to plan your design. You're also welcome to sketch out a design before you even begin building. You're then going to design it. You get to build it and then test it. Kind of give it a little test here to see if it can withstand you moving it, blowing it to see if it blows over. And then you readjust and rebuild as needed. One thing I have done before that is really fun is you can build your tower on top of a paper plate, and before you begin building, you can create a little pig out of paper and tape it to the middle of your plate. You can then build a house out of toothpicks and Play-Doh around it, almost like the Three Little Pigs house, and then have somebody test it by becoming the big bad wolf. See if they can blow your structure over. You can also take it up a notch and use a hairdryer as the big bad wolf and see how stable your tower really is. So as you can see, you can just continue to build. And one thing I have found is that if you pinch the Play-Doh just a little bit on the corners, it can really help it adhere. to the other toothpicks. And you can see mine starting to get kind of wobbly. So I would need to really look at what would I need to do to reinforce it and make it more stable as I work my way upwards. So that's it. That is all it takes to do your very own toothpick tower challenge.